So, after our usual Scotch Gambit introduction, another move that black might play quite sensibly here is bishop to c5, defending the pawn, developing a piece, preparing to castle. Why not? I strongly recommend here c3 when I think black should play knight f6, after which I think white should play e5. Lots of choices here still. All your usual moves are at least not bad. Instead of e5 you can play castles, which is a known gambit, or c takes d4, because by now we've actually strayed into one of the main lines of the Gioco Piano. I'm actually going to develop a whole separate video to that, because yeah, there's just too much theory to do in one video, and it's not really Scotch Gambit stuff, but I'll put it in for completeness, and there is some good chess to be played there. The main idea behind c3 is, well, there are two main ideas, but I'll show you the one that I prefer, is that after d takes c3, well, you can play gambit here. This isn't a bad little gambit. Knight takes c3. It's about equal, and why not? There aren't any master level games really played with this. I know there's an old game of Tim Harding's I'll stick in the notes, played by correspondence, but the most common moves played on Lee chess amongst the rest of us, this almost might be a main line of the opening. H3, bishop h4, and now if g5, just retreat. If bishop g4, give it a poke. The main line seems to be something like bishop e6, when you can play takes, and queen b3. The idea is not to be weedy, what we want to do after something like queen d7 is keep the game going with e5, and after d takes e5, rook a d1. Now knight to d5 here is a clear mistake, and white has an excellent position here, which continued in a game won by a grandmaster against an FM on Lee chess some time ago. So that's a line to explore. I don't recommend you play knight takes c3 after d takes c3. Don't play knight, because there's a much better move available based on a little trick, which is bishop takes f7, which just gives white an advantage. King takes f7, check with the queen. King goes to f8, and now queen takes c5, again with a check. Black can reply queen to e7. There's an example game there. They can reply d6, when you can either play queen takes c3, I don't see anything particularly wrong with that, or as in this next game, queen to c4, just offering the pawn some more. And this position with the king displaced for one pawn, this is just good for white. You can see the computer evaluation there at the top, plus 1.1. Now you are a pawn down, so actually you've got 2 pawns worth of attack here, and we have the enemy king in our sights. So really quite a really very good line. I don't know that the game's going to be very forcing here. I won't give any big main lines, but I mean, you've got everything that you might want. You've got some nice open lines. You've got the advantage, which you don't always get in the Scotch Gambit, and I can look forward to that, playing that with some confidence. So just going back to the this Gioco Piano position. I mean, I keep saying it's a Gioco Piano position. Let's have a look at it from that move order. Bishop to c4, bishop to c5, c3, and now after knight to f6, d4 is the main line, and after e takes d4, we've got back to this position where I say you can play any of these moves down here, e5, c takes d4, and castles. And I'll recommend e5, but why not look at castles first? This is called the Walbrot-Baird Gambit. I'm sure you knew that. And yeah, not a bad little gambit. Again, after d takes c3, maybe we can castle, but the main line seems to go e5, d5, and now takes and takes. This sort of exchange will be familiar to you from the Max Langer, or if you haven't watched that video yet, it won't be familiar at all. F takes g7 and takes, and now I think actually throwing a queen swap, throwing a check, throwing another check, take the bishop, take the pawn, and we're a pawn. We've got a pawn back, although the after rook takes g7, we've lost it again. This is about equal. We are a pawn down, but White's got plenty of activity and about enough to hold the balance of the position. Not by no means an advantage, but you do have quite a decent position here, and it's not bad to play. After castles, it's a well-known mistake here is to not a mistake by this move. Knight takes e4, but now c takes d4, and black might have been tempted to throw in a check with the bishop, but there isn't. As you already castled, there is no check there. So the mistake is to retreat with bishop to e7. In fact, you should hit back with d5 in this position as black. Again, you can see the evaluation sunk like a stone for black here. d5, start pushing the pieces around. Rook e1, knight to d6, bishop to d3, castles, knight c3, knight e8, and knight e8. Not a very special move. If you are a half decent attacking player, you may already have teed up the idea of bishop takes h7 here as a sacrifice. It's on, but not quite yet. Well, it's on. I expect it is on now. But Bernd Stein, who played this game in the European Championships several years ago, came up with the improvement of bunging up the black defensive system first with d6. You can capture, I suppose, with the bishop, but that will just allow the knight into the attack for free with knight to g5. So c takes d6 first, and now bishop takes h7 check, king takes h7, rook takes e7, eliminating the defender of g5, queen takes e7, and now the knight comes in with gain of tempo on the queen. And in this position, Kik Langerweg, who's a very fine Dutch player, saw far enough ahead to resign here. I must say I haven't got it all worked out myself, but you know that in the post is going to be moves like knight to g5, queen to h5 check, queen to d3 check. There's lots of ways for White to bring pieces into the attack, and the black king actually can't be defended without loss of material. So terrific game there by Bernd Stein in the Waldbrot Baird Gambit. Now, I think in fact the sort of official verdict on the Waldbrot Baird is about equal. I'm actually going to recommend you play a different line, which I call the centre attack. Slightly more promising, I think, than the Gambit line, at least equal for White. And these are the ideas. So black again has got a tempting error here. If you know various lines of the two knights defence, you might be tempted to play something like knight e4, which is a very well known mistake. And you can play here bishop to d5, and the knight really doesn't have anywhere very good to go to. There is, I mean, if you play the f5 defence here, I expect there's several ways that you can play this as well. Castles, I think, is okay. C takes d4, I think, is okay. Both of which preserve an advantage. I mean, yes, you've shed a pawn again, but black's not getting castled with your bishop on that long diagonal, and black's in considerable trouble. Actually, one game I've got here is actually what black threw in piece with knight takes f2, d takes c3. The king comes out to g3 of all places, c takes b2, and bishop takes b2. And now the plausible but inaccurate h5, we have check and king f8, because after king f7, check and takes, white's up a pawn, so king f8, h4 to stop that pawn coming forward, queen to d3, e6, bleh. And after rook to h6, knight g5, and black had seen enough, knight h7 can't be sensibly met, and white's winning. So instead of playing knight to e4, black playing knight to e4 after white's e5, the right reply, as so often in these games, is d5. And the main line, which has nearly always been played, is bishop to b5, but I'm going to mention and stick in the notes a mention of this other move, bishop to e2. The bishop on b5, well, that's quite a good bishop, and you might not want to swap it off. So why not retreat, wait for the knight to move, and then play c takes d4. Now the engine thinks this is merely equal, but it's had a little bit of exploration at really the top level here. Here's a game between Aronian and Ding Liren in the London Chess Classic in 2019. Which was won by white. I don't think it had a lot to do with the opening, but it shows that there's some life in these old systems yet. Bishop b5 is certainly the more familiar move, and possibly a better one. Knight e4 now, and c takes d4. We're starting to get to a less forcing phase, and where white's just got a nice centre. Bishop b4 check, bishop d2, and now lots of things are possible for black. a5, a3 is a good reply, and after bishop e7, bishop e3, you're just stepping out of the way of your bishop being captured, and you can develop with a tiny advantage. Otherwise, black might capture your bishop, but now you get a little lead in development after castles and castles, and again I'd put that as a position that's slightly better for white. And bishop takes d2, knight takes d2, and again you're a little bit better mobilized, and small advantage for white. So the better move after c takes d4 is to retreat the bishop to b6, and now it's really about equal. Knight c3, castles, bishop e3. There's a game in the notes here by Aronian against Mamedyarov, where black actually played f5, which looks a bit suspicious. Bishop to g4, h3, give it a nudge. Bishop to h5, and queen to c2, again with a small advantage for white. A game between Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen, whoever he is, and played at Rapid in 2021, and which white came out the winner. I mean, certainly holds a small advantage here. There may be other ways of playing it, but that's not a bad line for white. It's got a different character. I mean, but black played well enough to equalise. It's not the sort of thud and blunder, crash bang wallop sort of chess that we've seen in some other lines. There's no way of imposing that on black if black doesn't want to play, but I think this is a reasonable try for an opening advantage. Plenty of ways for black to go wrong earlier, and hope you enjoy playing it.